The Weeknd just dropped Dawn FM about a day and a half ago, and over that day and a half, I've listened to it a handful of times, and I have some thoughts. So, there's a few things with this album that make it very interesting and a little bit different in my mind to his previous projects. The first being the way it was rolled out. So, we did get the first single, Take My Breath, a few months ago. And everyone's like, yeah, there's an album coming. We kind of expected it. But then he didn't really say much about it. And then on, what was it, the 3rd? Like just earlier this week on Monday or Tuesday, I believe, he announced the album and it would be coming out on Friday, the 7th. So yesterday. So that's pretty cool. I mean, I think we're in that sort of era where artists are just going to drop whenever they drop and whenever they want to, and that's totally fine. I don't mind that sort of release at all because, just less waiting, I guess. But that's also kind of goes into the whole microwave era where we're just kind of expecting stuff to be released all the time and we don't sit with it for very long. So I guess that's one other thing. But The Weeknd is one of those types of artists that can do that. He's got enough of a fan base to be like, yeah, I feel like dropping my album now. Like, just whenever he wants to. And I did see him respond to someone saying like, oh, well, there's no merch or anything. Like, why are you dropping it now? And he's like, I don't care. Like, I just want to put the music out. So I like that. I respect it because, it shows that he's actually about the music. Second, this album, it really does feel like a continuation of After Hours. And I say that because, well, mostly the sound. Both albums do have a lot of, I guess, 80s synth pop sort of influence to it. And, to me, it's a familiar sort of sound because that's a lot of what was playing when I was growing up. I wasn't born in the 80s, but that's just what my parents were playing. But it's a familiar sound and The Weeknd does it well. And it's just he's able to do that. But beyond it being a continuation in that sense, it feels like the character that he's been portraying is continuing on through this. Because I feel like The Weeknd carries on a character throughout most of his albums, and you see that most evidently in the videos that come out for each of his for his music videos essentially. And normally it's a different sort of character. Like with the Trilogy we had, Trilogy and Kissland, I guess, were kind of similar in that sense. Like it had that same sort of Weeknd character, and then Beauty Beyond the Madness was a different one. And then with Starboy, he changed it up, and then between Starboy and My Dear Melancholy, like those were also two different sort of things. But My Dear Melancholy definitely felt like an outlier in the sense that this was maybe less of a concept and more of him just being completely real. But moving on, After Hours and Dawn FM carry on the same sort of like, I don't know how you explain it. So he's kind of taken on this, basically everything that he's been doing in his career, like all the bright lights, all the excitement, all the drugs. He's bringing that into his character and putting it in the forefront, and then kind of setting it to, I guess, kind of like an 80s sort of feel, at least with After Hours. With Dawn FM, I still actually need to watch the music video for Sacrifice, but with Dawn FM, the trailers and everything that I've seen for it, even the live stream, it's him basically carrying on that After Hours persona, but older. I'm sure the Sacrifice video kind of gets into that too, but it's almost like this older persona, older Weeknd character is there to kind of warn the younger one. It's almost like he's coming from the future to be like, hey, maybe you should slow down. Shit gets wild. Um, but honestly, that's not really what we get with this album. We, in terms sonically, we get kind of the same sort of feelings. A lot of the more. Actually, no. Now that I think about it, it's actually more focused on the emotional aspect, I'd say, because I mean, even we did get that with After Hours, like with songs like "Hard to Love," "Alone Again," "Scared to Live," stuff like that, and "Save Your Tears." Obviously, like we did get those more emotional songs, but I feel like they're a lot more obvious here, if that makes sense. Like here, it's like he's trying to chase after someone. Like he has a song like "How Do I Make You Love Me." He has "Here We Go Again," "Best Friends." Is there someone else? Don't Break My Heart. So, like it's different. Like it feels like a more. It feels like a Weeknd who's kind of been hurt and is trying to get something, and like, he's trying to get some sort of relationship going, but he's afraid to, because I mean, like based on his music prior, he was very much okay with not being in a relationship, um, to say the least. But here, it seems like he's more in the mindset of like, no, I think I'm ready. Like I think I'm ready to kind of settle down, but he's afraid to. And maybe the older character that he's brought into this world is there to remind him. He's like, yo, if you keep going the way you're going, you're not gonna have that. Like you're just gonna end up alone. Possibly. I mean, like we don't really know the whole overarching story beyond that. We do have a lot of snippets, like just radio snippets throughout the album, which is pretty cool. And it's also not anything new by any means. Like it's been done many times before. But the way it's done here is nice because it's not super over the top. It's just kind of every so often you're listening to Dawn FM 103.5. You do get a snippet from Quincy Jones. You have Jim Carrey coming in every so often. You even get you get a radio ad with what was it called? Every Angel is Terrifying. Like it's just weird, but getting into all those radio bits, that's kind of where the story I feel really is. With the A Tale by Quincy, he's talking about his parents and how they were taken away from him at a young age. Which to include that on this album makes it seem like The Weeknd can relate to it in some way. Or it could just be playing into the radio aspect, like, oh, hey caller, tell us about some, maybe. But then, you have Every Angel is Terrifying, where it kind of sounds like he's he's announced the next album, which everyone's assuming to be Afterlife. Well, not everybody. A lot of people have said it. I've seen, but that makes sense based on the final track, Phantom Regret, which is basically just a spoken word piece by Jim Carrey, where this whole album is kind of meant to be thought of as purgatory. Like, you're not quite dead, you're not quite in the afterlife. So, all these things that, like, if we were to assume this is purgatory, are thoughts that go through your mind when you're in that position in life, like purgatory or limbo. Like, you're just kind of there, waiting for the next thing. Like it being it, if the next album is to be called Afterlife, you have all these things that you're just kind of, like if you think about it as like Charon trying to harbor souls across the river Styx, like in my mind I always think of them just kind of lined up waiting, and then when it's your turn you go. but what are you thinking about that entire time you're waiting? Like, yeah, you're just a soul at that point, and it's always depicted as just mindless, but maybe that's the point where you're just thinking. There's a whole lot of stuff going on in your mind. You got time to reflect because you're no longer alive. The other way that I just thought about it was in Dragon Ball Z when you're on Snake Road and meeting King Yama and all that. But that's unrelated. But yeah, I mean, the album overall is really good. And I know a lot of people, at least leading up to the release, kind of expected it to be like, oh, this is going to go back to the Trilogy sound. No, we're not getting that sound again. That's not happening. Everyone, I keep saying everyone, but I mean, like, I hear a lot of people talking about it. A lot of people always want that, but that's not the sound we're going to get. And a lot of people also use the Trilogy to hype up whatever he's going to come out with next, but that's not what we're going to get. The Trilogy is, I still believe it's within him, like it's something that he can bring out, and it's still my preference. Like that's the sound that I prefer with The Weeknd, because when I started listening to him, I listened to him right before Beauty Behind the Madness, and then I went straight into Trilogy. And you know, that's the sound that I've preferred. It's just a little bit more, it's a little darker sort of sounding, more moody, I guess, compared to the more pop sort of sound that he's got now. But even still, it's not super poppy. But regardless, like, I still do prefer that sound over this, but this is still really good. And the fact that The Weeknd is able to continue to change his sound over the years and still be really good at it is impressive, to say the least. But that's all I've got for now. This was not meant to be a review by any means because, one, the album came out yesterday. I haven't had enough time to sit with it. You can't really form a proper opinion on an album at this point. All I can say is I like it. I'm going to keep listening to it over the weekend because there's not a whole lot else. I'm not going to listen to Gunna. Also, the other reason that this is not a review is because I don't typically review this sort of music. I mean, if you're not a subscriber at this point, you know that I mostly just review hip hop, and yeah, that's it. So this is a little bit out of where I'm familiar, out of my element. There we go. Anyways, that's all I got for now. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of Dawn FM. I think it's solid. Don't know where it stands in terms of his discography yet, but we'll have to wait and see. Also, like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Thank you for watching, and please stay safe out there.